Teven Jenkins talks about his desire to be a Chicago Bear for a long time. And we're going to talk about why this season is an important one to see if that can become a reality for the talented offensive lineman or not. We're also going to look at Shane Waldron's comments on how he plans on using the new weapons for the Chicago Bears. All that, plus take a look at the possible players that could be cut before week one. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. And so we touched on this a little bit on yesterday's live stream, me, Steve-O, and C-Dub. Teven Jenkins has now said that he wants to be a Bear for a long time. Now, we all know that this is an important season for Teven Jenkins, and there's no doubt about it. When Teven Jenkins is on the football field, he's the best offensive lineman for the Chicago Bears. With Darnell Wright, right there behind him, especially last season, we're going to see how he continues to develop. But the biggest problem with Teven Jenkins is his injury history. He came basically into the Chicago Bears being injured, right? And even in his rookie year, he's just dealt with tons of injuries over his time period. And that's the one thing when Teven Jenkins is on the football field. If the injury thing was not a concern there, I don't think there would be very many questions on Teven Jenkins getting a sizable contract by the Chicago Bears. And to the credit, it may not be one regardless. I want to be clear there. Maybe it's not one that it's even a question. And, it comes down to a few different things, right? Not only his ability to stay healthy, but also what else changes around the Chicago Bears. When you look at it, 12 games played his rookie year, 13 games played his second year. Last year, 12 games played. And so that's the biggest thing when it comes down to it. And Teven Jenkins saying this, what I got from my agent, we had to wait until after the draft is all I know. We're going to try to reach out to them here soon, but right now we're playing the waiting game. I want to be a Bear for a long time. I still do. That has not changed since I've been drafted, but we're going to see how things unfold and how things play out and just take it day by day. I'm just going to try to be a great leader for the O-line room and a great player for the team. And so Teven Jenkins has the right mindset about it, right? The fact is just that it's going to be told on the football field. Everything is going to be told on the football field. And, this is the first time that Teven Jenkins is not either switching positions or side of the ball since he started. He's coming in here playing the same exact position he played last year. He started at left tackle, and then he moved to right guard, and then he moved to left guard, and he's just been moved all around the place. Now, that speaks to his versatility. That also speaks to how much this team does trust him, and the fact that, listen, Tevin is somebody that they do rely on, and they know that he's going to be able to perform no matter where they put him at on that offensive line, and that is a big weapon for the Bears. But availability is one of the most important abilities, and that just is there, right? And so, the questions around Teven Jenkins and his ability to stay healthy are valid. And I think the Bears also are going to be looking and surveying when you hear things like they had to wait till after the draft. Is it because the Bears wanted to see what they were going to get in the draft? Amagaje is there, right? And we know that. Now, I look at Amagaje as somebody who can start at multiple positions, much like Teven Jenkins. He can play at tackle. He can play at guard. He's not. They don't quite know when he's going to be cleared yet, right? That's for sure. But he is somebody that the Bears think and view very highly. They look at what he's going to be able to bring and be for this team in the long run as something that they really do value. Does that play a part in Teven Jenkins and how you view his injury history and things like that? I'm not saying that it does for sure. I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if they do want to review and look at all that before making that final decision. And that's just what it comes down to. So we'll see what happens, with the future of Teven Jenkins. Listen, I hope that he stays a Bear for a long time. You guys know I'm somebody who, when your team drafts somebody, or our team, the Bears, when they draft somebody and that player does develop, I want to see him stay here. And so he's going to be given an opportunity, and it really just comes down to him making the most of that opportunity and showing that, hey, the value is here. And also on the Bears with depth, right? And, offensive linemen being fully healthy, I always say this, I don't think any offensive lineman is fully healthy after the first 2 weeks of the season, right? It's just about, does it keep you out or not? They are always banging there, and it's the biggest people on the football field most times or not, and they're colliding every single play, regardless if it's run, pass, or anything. And so, do I give maybe a little bit too much leeway with the health thing in that aspect? Maybe. We all have our biases and our blind spots, but hopefully Teven Jenkins does whatever needs to be done and he can prove that he deserves that contract with the Chicago Bears because, listen, we need to protect our quarterback. And unless you have something in the wings or have a plan where you think you're going to be able to replace Tevin with a damn good tackle, why let him go? It really comes down to that price tag as well. I think the injury, I haven't gotten the feeling or really the hearing anything that it says that like Teven Jenkins is going to want too much money or anything like that. So it just comes down to, with Ryan Poles, finding the value and that overlap with that of the production on the football field. And hopefully that they end up in the same place and Teven Jenkins can stay a Chicago Bear for a long time. Now, moving on from that, we had the rookie minicamp over the weekend, which we've heard really good things from everybody just about. Even got Austin Booker that he is going to be, reaching out to Max Crosby and stuff like that. But one of the questions coming into the season is, the Bears have a plethora of weapons, right? We have our wide receiver core. We have Gerald Everett. We have Cole Kmet. Adding that to Swift and all the weapons in the backfield. And so how you use weapons are extremely important, and that is the job that Shane Waldron finds himself of having to figure out is the best way to use all these weapons for the Chicago Bears. And he actually talked about that, and he said this: I think for us on offense, we want to be able to be multiple on offense, and with the addition of the wide receivers, having 3 wide receivers, 2 established vets, we've got other young guys that are set up coming on the roster as well. Said this, being mindful to not forget players like Tyler Smith, Velus Jones. It just allows us to continue multiple looks, allows us to, on a week-by-week basis, see what might be a matchup advantage or something that we can look to lean heavier towards. And with Cole Kmet and Gerald on the other tight ends and KB, Kareem Blasingame, at fullback, we've got a lot of different pieces that we can utilize. And, that I don't think anybody is surprised to hear. We know that this Bears team has crazy amount of weapons, right? The weapons that we have here right now are ridiculous. And this may be one of the most weapon-laden offenses that we've ever seen here for the Chicago Bears when you look at everything in totality. And it's up to Shane Waldron to keep everyone involved. It's up to Shane Waldron to put everyone in the best situations, right, in that whole coaching staff. But I like what he said as far as multiple looks and finding the advantages, because that's going to be the key here, that especially with Caleb Williams and his decision-making and things like that, is that being able to really match up well against almost any look in the NFL, right? As long as you work this out, do you have an advantage with DJ in the slot? Do you have an advantage with Keenan Allen in the slot? Do you have an advantage with Rome on the outside and something like, and just having that, right? As well as the fact of having Gerald Everett or Cole Kmet line up as a pseudo wide receiver in some of these matchups. Velus, Tyler Scott, their speed, how do you use them in slant routes? Use them maybe even a little bit in the running game, right? So, not that I want this offense to become gimmicky. That's one thing that I don't want, right? Gimmicky and weapon utilization can be skewed if you don't do it the right way, right? It can be looked at as very gimmicky if you have multiple weapons that you like to just do things just to do shit. But it's the intentionality behind how you use those weapons in those certain matchups that keep it from being a gimmick. And so I would love to see this Bears team become, in this first year, one of those teams that does exploit those matchups hugely. And, we don't know how long Keenan Allen's going to be here. We know that they're not even going to, at least the last that we heard from Ryan Poles, they're not even expected to really explore the contract extension talks into maybe the end of the season. They may not explore that at all during the season. So because of that, in this year that you do have this 3 wide out look, at least, right, while you're trying to either develop or maybe look at other wide receivers down the road, using that and being very versatile in how it's going to put defense in a place where you can't rest on your laurels at all. You could see what the Bears do for a couple of weeks, and that could drastically change just in the next game. You just never know. And that's the exciting part, and why Bears fans are excited right now about all the weapons that we have. And Caleb Williams should be excited as the quarterback of this team as well, and all the weapons at his disposal. And so to hear Shane Waldron even bring up Tyler Scott, bringing up Velus, right, and talking about not forgetting on using those guys as well, to me, through what we know so far, all we have is words. Of course, we got to wait and see what that's going to actually be, on the football field. But because of that mindset being in the right place now, where it would be an easy time to kind of forget those guys and just talk about the Gerald Everetts, the Cole Kmets, the Rome Odunzes, the DJ Moores, right, the Keenan Allens as a new acquisition. As it would be easy to just focus on those guys, the fact it tells me that it's at least in his mind right now that hey, I got these other guys that I need to work in this offense as well. Hell, when's the last time we talked about Kahari Blasingame, right? And what he could potentially be for this team as a fullback. Hell, we talked a lot about the Bears signing an actual full-time fullback for the first time in years, right? When we signed him. But, it's things like that Shane Waldron can make this offense so special and set the foundation and the groundwork early in the season, in training camp, in OTAs, of just being this offense that you don't know what looks you're going to get from the Bears. And I can't think of a time where we've had that much potential in being a team that could do that at our disposal in so long. So the development of Caleb Williams and being able to identify, use, read defenses, right? To be able to understand how to also utilize these weapons in the game plan that Shane Waldron is going to come out with. We need to see a great synergy between weapons, the QB, and the offensive coordinator, and how it's all executed. We got the talent here, right? And that's why I always say, and there's been some people that take, umbrage with me saying things like, well, on paper. Well, all we have right now is on paper. And we've seen a lot of talented teams in all sports that have tons of talent on paper, but it doesn't always come together. And so those things have to be in line. And it's not necessarily just about the skill set of the players. I don't doubt the skill that we have here. We have one of the most skillful offenses and talented offenses that we've ever seen in Chicago Bears history now on this roster. And I think with the newness, with the doubt, with the things like that, there's more than enough reason to question it. But that is what we have here. And it's up to those things to come together and to utilize them properly to where it builds something that we can then turn into wins on the football field. And that's what we're here for, people, is wins. That's what we're here for. And so hopefully this is one of a season where we see that growth and development over time. I know a lot of Bears fans have the hope that we're going to just hit the ground running. And I'm not saying that that's not a possibility. But you guys know me. I try to err on the side of realism, and some pessimism is in that as well. I was very excited going into the Bears season last season. And maybe that has now caused me a little PTSD, but I want to see it all. If it comes together on paper, the way that it looks like in reality, the way that it looks like it can on paper, we're in for an exciting offense this year, and an offense that we just haven't had here a whole hell of a lot as Bears fans. So let's hope that continues, man. I think this is going to be a really fun Chicago Bears season. I know I keep saying that, but it really does. Like, the excitement, it's different. The way that even Bears fans talk about it, it's all there. It's all there. And I'm getting really excited about it, man. I think that this is going to be a season where we're going to have a lot of really good things to talk about, and we're going to have a lot of wins to talk about. If you guys have been fans of this channel for a long time, you guys know we haven't gotten to talk about a whole hell of a lot of wins. We just haven't. 10 wins, I think, since the history of this podcast starting is what the Bears have had going into our third season now covering the team. But, we'll end up seeing, man. We'll end up seeing. But before we get out of that and into the next topic, I want to talk about the Bears right now reportedly are one of the front runners, right, that the Bears could land a former Super Bowl champion to come to the Chicago Bears. And, I don't know how much I believe this, but Emanuel Ogbah, I believe it's Ogbah is how you say his name. This guy, he's played in the NFL for a while. He's somebody who can come in and definitely fit what the Bears need when you look at the fact that, if they don't go Ngakoue or something like that. And so there's definitely a potential for that. He played with the Miami Dolphins. He's also a former Brown, 30 years old, 6'4", 278 pounds. When you look at his career as far as getting to the quarterback, 42 sacks over his career. That dates back to 2016. Only 1 sack last year. Only played 15 games. No sacks the year before that. But he is a guy that can come in theoretically and help add some depth there for the Chicago Bears. Now, I don't know if this changes, between DeMarcus Walker or even Austin Booker, who we have heard now that Austin Booker will have an opportunity to win that starting role. We'll see what happens there. But it does tell me this, is that the Bears have not ruled out necessarily still trying to maybe add a veteran edge rusher there. So over the course of his career, he's a guy who can really get it done. He can get it done. 5 sacks last year, 1 sack in 2022, 9 sacks in 2021, 9 sacks in 2020. So this is a guy who still has been productive. Has he been amazingly productive? No, like it's not jumped out the stat sheet at you, but he still forces fumbles. He gets tackles for a loss. This is a guy who can still come in and absolutely help out the Chicago Bears. Also he had an interception last year. So this is a guy that I would not mind at all if the Bears do look at Emanuel Ogbah to come to this team. And that ends up being the player that they sign, it ends up being the player that they sign. Depth is probably the most important thing that the Bears really are looking for, at that defensive end position, rather than kind of looking for somebody who's a long-term pair next to Montez Sweat. That may be Austin Booker. But if they are looking at, if you do add Emanuel to this team, you're adding then a player that can come in. He can allow DeMarcus Walker to still kind of fluctuate inside and outside, which he's going to do regardless, and you add some veteran depth there. So I'm not mad at it at all. It really depends, I think, on how they view Austin Booker and where he's at as far as being able to help this team in his rookie year. And I guess we'll end up seeing what comes down for that. But I also want to talk about two Bears who could be cut before week 1 of the season. So the first one that we want to talk about is Larry Borom on the offensive line. When it comes down to it, you got to look at it. They brought in Kieran for a reason. They brought in a lot of depth, versatile pieces on that offensive line as well. And Larry Borom has just not been a very dependable player while he's been here at all. Has a 48 PFF grade, which isn't the end-all be-all, right? But it was the lowest grade of his career. So you see that he allowed 3 sacks. He was penalized 5 times and only 411 snaps last year. So while Larry Borom still has some potential for sure, I think when you look at Kieran Amagaje being added to this roster, while he's still raw, it really depends on how soon can he be cleared. But I do think if he's ready to go, he's going to be playing at multiple positions for the Bears. I think Larry Borom is somebody who could end up moving on, free up a little bit of money as well that could allow you to help it be easier to keep one of the undrafted free agents you signed as well. So Larry Borom is one of those cut candidates for sure. And then also, you got to look at someone in the safety position. When you look at it, we know who the safeties are going to be, right? We know that it's going to be Bayard. We know that it's going to be Jaquan Brisker. So that leaves Elijah Hicks, Owens Moore, Quindell Johnson, Adrian Colbert, and Douglas Coleman all battling for like 3 spots left on the roster. And so one of those spots that are going to be cut is going to end up being a safety more than likely. And so Elijah Hicks is somebody who could. Now, it really is determined about how much ahead is he of those other guys that we mentioned. Elijah Hicks is a guy who's played well at times for the Chicago Bears. I still think has a lot of upside as well. But I would not be surprised if Elijah Hicks ends up being somebody because of the savings, things like that, because of younger players behind him who may not be looked at and viewed as necessarily well, but can still be solid depth pieces. There also, Elijah Hicks, 24 years old, 5'11". I like Elijah Hicks too. He's heading into his 3rd year, but I do think there is a risk of him potentially being cut by the Chicago Bears as well. But you guys can let me know what you guys think on all that down below, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Oh, wait, before we go, I do want to read. We got text messages. We always get mailbags, and somehow we always forget to go over the text messages. So we got this one here. He says, "Hey, CBC, my name is Will. I'm a Chicago native and veteran that's currently living out in Savannah, Georgia. I've been subscribed and watching you guys for a while and was inspired to start my own Chicago Bears YouTube Facebook fan page. I remember watching your YouTube channel a few years ago and seeing how fan-focused and passionate Haize was, and honestly, all y'all, man, Bobby C. Dub, man, the whole crew, is a real dope vibe. I'm not actually sure if you all are still local to the city, but I'm coming to Chicago this weekend, and no, it may seem like crazy request, but brother, if you're willing, I'd love to meet you guys. I know it's last minute, but I figured nothing beats a failure but a try. If you are open, man, shoot me a message. We can grab a slice downtown." So unfortunately, we were not. It's been a busy weekend. But the reason why I wanted to read this message, outside of the asking to meet, is just the fact that, to say that we inspired you to start a Chicago Bears fan page or start a Chicago Bears podcast, whatever you guys start, I want to thank you guys. And start it, right? Start it. Invite us on. We'll come on. If you want to start a podcast, we'll support it. This thing and what we build, when we said that we want to be the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, that we want to be the voice of the fans, that also means encouraging people. For those that know my story or don't, I kicked around starting Chicago Bull Central for 2 or 3 years before I started doing it. And it took a conversation with my father to really light the fire under me to go ahead and make that leap and start it. And so it's been one of the greatest journeys. I wouldn't have Chicago Bears Central if it wasn't for me starting Bull Central. I wouldn't know C-Dub. I wouldn't know Bobby. I wouldn't know Kev. I wouldn't know Steve-O. And these are guys that I really look at as my brothers now, right? So, start it. You never know where that journey is going to take you. It may not be the place where you look to do this professionally, and it doesn't have to be. I think so often now, like, people are trained, like, podcast has to be this thing where you got to look to try to do it full time. It doesn't. It could just be something you just do in your pastime that you just have a love and a passion and an appreciation to do. Start it, whether it's a Facebook group, whether it's a Twitter, whether it's a YouTube channel, whether it's a podcast, whatever it is. Start it, and we will definitely support you. And I speak for the whole team. We will definitely support anybody who decides to go on that journey. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following the show at Shy Bear Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.